Hi everyone. So I'm going to talk about brush making today. So when you guys are painting your Mimbres bowls, you have a whole variety of brushes I asked you guys to buy. And those brushes are fairly wide. If you're lucky, you have a brush kind of like this one, where it's fairly tapered on the end. And you can see the scale when you look at my finger, that's a pretty small brush. But to get really fine lines, think about the hippopotamus drawing that I did for you guys. I took a little video of it here. To get those really fine lines, like along there, it's going to be really difficult to do with this really thick brush. So I'm going to show you guys how to make a human hair natural brush using just a chopstick or some stick of some kind, some thread, and this is human hair. Okay, so what you're going to need is you're going to need a little piece of human hair. This is my hair. I was going to, take some for my child, but I didn't. I used my own. I have some wooden chopsticks and bamboo chopsticks that I got at a takeout place. I have some kind of thread. You can use needle and thread. This is kind of embroidery thread or a thicker thread. That's totally fine. Whatever works. Whatever you have will work. Even like electrical tape, if you're like, I don't have any thread. Well, electrical tape will work. This is like a thin type of electrical tape, and electrical tape is kind of stretchy. You can kind of see it stretch. So that's always good to have on hand. And then some kind of glue. You can use just straight up Elmer's glue. This is E6000, it's a little bit stronger, or if you have super glue at home, that's totally fine too. But all of that will work. So first you need to cut yourself a little piece of your own hair, or go shave your child's head and use that hair. You need a very small amount, so just take it from a very inconspicuous spot. I learned this technique from a Mata Ortiz artist. That's a type of pottery done in Mexico. When I was the head of the Richmond Art Center's ceramics program, I invited Juan Tejada to come up and do a demonstration for my students. And he made these human hair brushes. And he had said that the best hair is actually children's hair because it's fairly thin and fairly soft. And you can see my hair by scale is kind of thicker than that. So we'll see. We're going to make some brushes and hopefully you come across something that you find useful. Okay, so I have a little bit of hair. This is much more than I need, really. I'm going to try to separate out a small section. And I can set this one aside. Maybe I want to make a thicker brush later, so I'm going to set that aside. And it helps sometimes if you wet your hair. Just put it in my mouth. But it's my hair, right? So that's not gross at all, right? Okay, so now I have a nice, fairly thick. This is how thin the original brush I had made with Juan Tejada. So going to cut this end off, and I'm going to leave all this length here, even though my brush is not going to be this long. Take your tool, and I'm just going to lay the hair right along the tool like this. You want to have at least 1/4 of an inch of hair laying along the chopstick, okay? And then I'm just going to take a piece of this thread. And you're just wrapping, okay? So I like to put the thread down here because I'm going to use my thumb to hold the hair and the thread at the same time. So I'm putting the thread underneath my thumb. You kind of see the thread's the same color as the, I'm putting my thumb right on it so the thread is secure. Then I'm going to take my hair, I'm going to squeeze that in next to my thumb. I'm going to move everything kind of towards the top. I think I gave myself a little too much room. And I'm going to wrap wrap, wrap, wrap. And you can see it's already very secure. I can let go. Okay. Scooch that up towards the top. It's a technical term there, scooch. And again, I'm just going to wet that hair to keep it together, because I think it's a little bit of a pain. And I'm pulling the thread as I'm wrapping it. It's fairly tight so that the hairs don't pull out as I'm using this handmade brush. I'm going to put my finger up against the chopstick, wrap the thread around so that I have a little bit of a loop. I'm going to pull through the loop and make a knot. I'm going to do that again. Careful not to get my hair and my finger. I'm going to go in, pull the knot through. And you can do that several times. That's kind of up to you how many times you do it. So I'm going to do that a couple more times. And you can do it the old-fashioned way, which is just kind of pulling the loop through. So I just made it a little bit messy at the end, but that's no big deal. And now I'm going to take my E6000, which is a kind of industrial strength glue. Just put a little bit of glue on the end. Because glue, this type of glue is pretty bad stuff, I'm just going to use a piece of plastic to shield my hand from the glue. Okay, and that glue will set. It will take about 24 hours for it to set. So I'm going to try not to touch that part. So now I'm going to come up here and I want to kind of cut off a little bit of hair. Put that on the ground, sweep that up later. Oops, I just told you I wasn't trying to touch that, and of course I touched it. And then I'm going to trim all the hair that is not part of the main shaft. I'm just going to go through and I'm going to pull it down towards the end and cut that stuff off. Those are hairs that are uneven, you know, split ends and everything, or, you know, from if you got your hair cut recently and they use like a razor cut or something like that, you know, they kind of unevenly do the ends of your hair. You can kind of see. Now I have one kind of section. Let me get rid of that leg guy. Goodbye. Get out of here. So now I have one complete piece of hair that's acting together. And same thing with this one. If I wet that one, you can see it kind of sticks together. So these are fairly thin brushes. Let's see how they actually work. Okay, so you're not painting your hippopotamuses, or I'm sorry, your emblems, but I forgot to burnish this hippo. So this is just a piece of clay that I have laying around. So don't feel like you have to paint your emblems. In fact, I don't want you to paint your emblems. You guys burnish them instead. So I'm going to take the brush I originally made with the Mata Ortiz Artist, and you can see that I can make really fine lines using this brush. You can see how tiny, tiny, tiny that line is. And now I'm going to take my brush that I just made. And this should be a little thicker. And a big goop of underglaze there. And maybe my hair is a little long. I'm finding maybe I want to cut that a little bit. But yeah, you can see that's a really nice line as well. You just kind of drag that across the surface. That gives you a really nice line as well. I think maybe this is a little too long, so I'm going to cut it down a little bit. So try out your brush, figure out what's going to work for you. And to get these really fine pinstripe lines on your Mata Ortiz bowls, it does take a steady hand, but these brushes really do make a world of difference. Look how nice these lines are when you go through and do your project. So the next video will be of me painting my Mata Ortiz bowl using this brush or a variation of this brush. All right, so that gives you a lot longer and skinnier lines. To give you an idea, this is the manufactured brush that I bought, and the lines that it gives are, because the hairs are shorter, they're not as even, but they're so much thicker. You can see the thickness of that versus the thinness of that. What a difference. All right, so I hope you guys had fun learning about how to make natural hair brushes using your own hair or your children's hair, maybe your poodle's hair, I don't know. Chihuahua's hair might be long enough if you have a really fluffy Chihuahua. So try it out, see what happens. Bye guys.